Hey there. So last week I did a quick little post talking about my interest in entrepreneurial failure and doing a quick deep dive into the literature, a little Google Scholar. And for those who don't know, I used to be an academic. I like to say I'm a recovering academic at this point. I found an article that really resonated with me, and it's by Sailors, Lahari, Warnick, and Bade. Such an academic way to do this. It's a 2021 paper, and it's titled Looking Back to Venture Forward. Exploring idea and identity work in a public failure. And I thought this was really interesting because in my head this really resonated with me. So there are basically 5 concepts I'm going to quickly talk about and leave it there. But identity is really, really important to the human being. Now, we all have multiple identities. We have the mother, we have the wife, we might have the professional CEO, we might have the basketball player. We all carry these multiple identities. And one identity, and if you've been around enough founders, it's this founder identity. And so when there's a failure, these kind of break down into a couple different categories. And the first one really is founder identity affirming. And what this is really talking about is the ongoing identification with the business and the founder role. So this is when an individual, even though they fail, they say, well, I'm a founder, we're supposed to fail. Like, they own that identity. And then there's this idea of the domain-focused identity. And this is when a founder identifies with an entrepreneurial role distinct from a founding role. So entrepreneurial role being I'm the CTO, I'm the sales guy. And so, for example, some noted in this paper that their identification with the role was associated with helping other entrepreneurs. So I definitely relate to this one. I like to help other people, and so this is one capacity. Now, the other identity and how this kind of transforms when you fail is the founder identity relinquishing. And this concept is really like, some failed entrepreneurs de-emphasize their identification with the founder's role. They want to disassociate themselves. They want to say that, I should have never been a founder. That's not me. This group was really interested in decoupling their identity from this entrepreneurial process. And they were more interested in aligning their identity to something other than the failure. So, they might have failed in their venture. They might say, you know what, I'm just going to take a step back and be a dad. Or I'm going to go back into the corporate world. Now, the other one of these is this idea called idea work. And this is really the process of reevaluating the failed business idea. So we have the identity, but then we have people who then want to either affirm the idea or revise the idea. And I thought this is interesting because I've definitely fallen into this as well. So when you fail, you take this retrospective perspective and you say, okay, so let's take this notion of idea affirming. So this is when the founder justifies the failure by saying the product's original idea was good. Boy, I did that with my last startup. And giving attribution to the external concept or external and abstaining taking any actual responsibility for the failure or execution of the failure. And so this is when someone says the idea is good, but all these external factors outside of myself, giving attribution to, is the reason why it failed. So they're doubling down on the idea. And often the idea is just because it didn't work. It wasn't the right product market fit. It wasn't the right slice of the market. It wasn't the right product. It wasn't the right messaging. There's an infinite amount of reasons why something's not right, but the founder tends to hold on to this idea as part of their identity of like, this was the right idea, but other thing outside of my control. The last concept of this I'm going to talk about today is the idea revising. So this is when an entrepreneur, they update their key assumptions regarding the failed business idea. And so, we can take Q Change, which was my last startup. We had the assumption that people wanted to actually improve their soft skills. That was the assumption we had. And boy, we doubled down on that from an affirming perspective. But from a revising perspective, what we learned is that you had to basically reshift the conversation and make it more of a tool to improve the lowest performing individuals inside the organization. Now this may be happening. I'm not there anymore. But this is taking internal attribution where the entrepreneur accepted personal responsibility for the failure, right? So we launched the product in the wrong market. We went enterprise. We shouldn't have done enterprise. There's a whole bunch of reasons why you failed, but we take ownership of that failure and we revise the product and reposition it and then market it. And so, these entrepreneurs exhibiting idea revising express that their updated specific assumptions related to their failed business idea and or execution of it. So we have this idea affirming, this idea revising. This is really external attribution, internal attribution. That's the big difference of those. So I thought this idea of identity was really, really interesting this week. And just to kind of recap it, we have this idea of founder identity. I'm going to affirm myself as a founder. Domain focused identity affirming. I am a CTO. I am a techie. I am a sales guy. And then you have the idea of separating. I've met a ton of founders who are like, I am not a founder. This is not for me. I'm not cut from this cloth, if you will. So really interesting. I think from a failure perspective, how you decouple that psychologically is really important. So, all right. Hey, everyone, have a nice Thanksgiving, and thanks for listening.